So we're going to have a few questions and answers now as we move forward. I'm sure that as people have spoken, there have been questions formulating in your mind. Certainly there are in mine. Ralph, as you spoke about your company's expansions into Puerto Rico and other areas, and you've given us the designation as the Discovery Center for so much of what goes on, how do we get to retain a lot of what AbbVie does in terms of the manufacturing side, rather than having those jobs shipped over to other parts of the world? I know you have markets in other parts of the world, and you need to be attentive to that. But how can we potentially position Worcester not just as the Discovery Center, but also as the manufacturing center for so many good businesses?
Yep. So excellent question. And I guess I would differentiate between the different phases of manufacturing or leading up to manufacturing, from discovery to development to commercialization. And the reference I was making was toward that commercialization phase, where in and of itself there's even an evolution where volumes are growing, margins, the allowance for manufacturing costs are constantly under pressure, and companies are forced to look at every aspect of the value chain for becoming more efficient. And as as Nick said, with some of the business, even in I guess in corrugated and in papers, heading to other places for reducing those costs. To answer the question about how do we retain it, I think we focus on, again, what we do well, and that is the discovery and development phase. There's plenty of volume for us in that development phase, and our specialty at our location here in Worcester is in making those prototype compounds that go to the clinic, that go through the clinical trials and lead to the creation of a data set that the FDA and other regulatory agencies then review to approve as a commercially licensed drug. It's more of the high margin type of work. Innovation will always command a higher margin. And I think that's our sweet spot for AbbVie here at Worcester. It's one that we'll continue to emphasize within our own company. And I think it's one that will continue to drive the growth and the adaptation or evolution of our site to the trends that we're seeing in our own industry.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. Sheila and Jack, you're very much on the side of supplying skilled people into the industry. I know that Massachusetts has stepped up on new Common Core standards in the K-12 system, attempting to build a stronger graduate in the areas of STEM and other key indicators for future success. Jack, I know that Mass MEP has stepped up on many occasions, bringing real world through your mobile lab to high schools and middle schools throughout the state. Would you speak a little bit to that issue, not just from the technical high school wonderful experience, but we need to widen the front end of the funnel in terms of ensuring that young people understand what manufacturing is and get excited about it?
We had a program where we provided an education, a 20-minute orientation, and actually it was a STEM orientation. We took young people on a mobile training unit, 12 at a time, and showed them how they used their Cartesian math and how they could apply that in making a part. And so they saw what they were learning in school and how it could work in the real world. So that was kind of a novel experience for them. And we went through that orientation and showed them where these parts go to in a plane and so forth like that. And it was a very, very good, we did about 4,000 young people, all right. We had one complaint, somebody in Forest Grove, and we took the young people who, how would I phrase it, had made decisions that they weren't going to go on to college. And that, so consequently, the one complaint we had was somebody in Forest Grove over in Springfield who complained that her son didn't get the chance to go on the mobile training unit, and even though he was going to go to college. She wanted him to have that experience. The young people universally enjoyed the experience. many of those young people applied for one of the trades. The unfortunate part is that we awakened a demand, and the unfortunate part was that the schools in those areas did not have the capacity to take on all the students that were interested. All right. Again, we get to resources and try to balance those resources. The real problem here, all right, with technology and training people for jobs in manufacturing is that it's very, very hard for a young person to get an entry-level position in manufacturing. The large companies, the companies over 500, have moved to a situation where they hire people on a temporary basis, all right? So the truth is that you have to almost be get a temporary job to get a permanent job in a large company. They use the temporary situation as a screening process. Companies used to provide that type of training and apprentice training. That's all gone out the window. So it's being forced back on the schools who haven't been supported, they don't have the assets, all right, necessary to support the demand. And it's going to be a process of getting those assets and getting the schools up to speed. And we're trying to work with that, all right? Balancing the demand and getting the capacity to meet that demand is going to be one of the biggest challenges. President Carberry mentioned before, we're going to lose 100,000 skilled positions, all right? That's not only skilled positions, all that retained knowledge. It's going to be very, very hard to duplicate that retained knowledge, all right? And you only do that over a period of time. So that's been one of our biggest assets, all right? The other situation that was talked about here about the innovation side of it, there's a lot of pressure coming down from the larger companies to force the smaller companies to take on more and more of the developmental and the prototype work, all right, in traditional manufacturing. And truthfully, the smaller companies don't have the skills or the knowledge that's in place to support those demands. So there's a lot of pressure in the manufacturing community, not only in the pipeline, but in the incumbent workforce, to trade up their skills. And it's one of the biggest challenges we face. We're very, very fortunate in this area here that we have facilities such as Quinsigamond and the Worcester Technical High School, that we're far better shaped than many of the other areas of our state. But this is a challenge that's going to be facing us for the next 10 years.
At Worcester Technical High School in the last 8 years, we have been addressing the misconception about what a vocational school is. And you hear that expression, it's no longer your grandfather's school, because it's not. Business and industry is expecting our students to be graduating college and career ready. And students might need to take additional technical programs or go on to 2 or 4 year school, depending on where they would like to enter the world of work at what capacity. So at Worcester Tech, we've doubled the number of honors courses, and in 2008, actually implemented the first advanced placement course ever in the school's history. You could imagine there was a little bit of pushback in regards to where is our school going. And it actually was to support all 24 technical programs. We started with advanced placement biology to support our students in allied health. None of our students at the time were getting into any 4-year degrees to study pre-med. So we needed to increase the rigors to support a strong transcript to allow our students to apply to any 2 or 4 year school and get accepted. I'm proud to say we started with 7 students in 2008, and we're over 200 students right now taking advanced placement classes at Worcester Tech. We also have advanced placement computer programming, the Java for the IT students, and environmental science, AP Environmental, in our technical program as well for our environmental students. In addition, 2 years ago, Governor Patrick put into law the innovation plan that schools in especially a large urban setting could apply for certain autonomies. And we thought it would be a great idea at this point to sit together as a faculty and carve out where the future of Worcester Technical High School and our school was going. So we actually created a STEM early career and college innovation plan where our faculty, through 2/3 faculty vote, I'm so proud to say, voted this plan into acceptance which our faculty gave up some of their own union rights of bidding and so forth to ensure the future of Worcester Technical High School. And in this plan, all of our 24 technical programs focus on science, technology, engineering, and math. There's crosswalk frameworks that our students are going to be exposed to in all areas, so that we are making sure that our students are graduating with the necessary skills, industry-recognized credentials, and a strong transcript. 65% of our students at Worcester Technical High School qualify for a free or reduced lunch. And it is our opinion that education and training are power. And it's single-handedly for our school and their families breaking the cycle of poverty, because our students are graduating. If they choose to go directly into the world of work, they have industry-recognized credentials and skill sets to earn themselves a position in your place of employment. If they choose to go on to 2- and 4-year schools, they have that strong transcripts, as well as the information and knowledge that this is what I want to study, this is what I want to be when I grow up. And unfortunately, so many times students they're graduating from high school, they have no idea what they'd like to major in, and they go to college, and it's a very expensive exploratory program as they continue to change their major and graduate in 5 years, 6 years, or 7 years. And I think in the opportunities at a vocational technical school expose students at the age of 14 through high school, and really develop that mindset of what they'd like to do to be productive members of our community.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open the mic in the center here for questions and comments from anyone present today with regard to this important topic. Please go to the mic.
Good morning, Jeff Turgeon with the local Workforce Investment Board. Given the large number of manufacturing jobs that are anticipated and the small capacity of our vocational schools throughout the state, what could we be doing to better prepare the general student body for the jobs in manufacturing?
Well, I would certainly say that the Common Core curriculum that has been rolled out by the Commonwealth is an important start. It focuses on math, science, technology, critical skills that all graduates need to have in the current economy. I would say, too, that the articulation agreements between high schools and community colleges in our state are important. As individuals transition from the high schools and need a career pathway, the opportunities for dual enrollment, sometimes called concurrent enrollment. Right now, Quinsigamond offers Spanish courses for college credit at Worcester Technical High School to ensure that those students can graduate college ready. Without a foreign language, that's not possible. But there are places where the community colleges in the state should begin to expose more students to college courses that are in the STEM areas. And I think, the Commissioner Freeland from the Department of Higher Education is very supportive of that agenda, of our ability to attract students from every socioeconomic bracket into higher education in Massachusetts. Clearly, the four-year partners as well are absolutely key to this. It all has to be working around partnerships. It all has to be models similar to what happened at Worcester Technical High School, where business and industry step up, where prime partners step up and say, this is what we need, this is what we're willing to offer, and this is what we need to do to get there. So I would say that Tim Murray's agenda through the chamber, with some focus on manufacturing, will begin some critical dialogue in our region around how do we get there, how do we make change happen. And clearly the WIB, as we know, as a prime partner as well, Jeff.
There's an important part here that you should understand also, is that the technology is changing very rapidly. I date myself. I think my first job here in Worcester was buying pie boxes from Rand Whitney with Mr. Hyatt. All right, I worked at Table Talk. But for all intents and purposes, there's a constant change, evolution in manufacturing. The machine technology changes rapidly. The demands change rapidly. And there's going to be a requirement for continuing education. All right? If people coming out today, engineers and all, in 4 or 5 years, much of what they learned in school is going to be obsolete. And that the programs that were instituted by Quinsigamond relative to distance learning, for technology, I think is a really good first step. One of those things that we intend to do is promote those courses across the state. Getting access and getting exposed to educational, technology education is an important part of manufacturing, and if manufacturing is expected to grow in this state as it has been in the past, it's going to have to increase its educational quotient by a considerable degree. Want to say something?
Charlie Baker, candidate for some office, I can't remember what, and an executive at a venture firm in Cambridge. That was a really great panel, by the way. Thank you very much. My big question gets a little bit to something that Ralph talked about and Nick alluded to, which is this compression of, and actually Jack talked about it as well, the compression of sort of research, development, and commercialization and manufacturing and the time frames associated with all that, and the fact that we're sort of entering a world where in a lot of manufacturing, the runs are shorter, the ongoing redesign and redevelopment of the product happens a lot more quickly than it used to. And is that ultimately going to be a good thing or a bad thing for a state like Massachusetts, which has a ton of intellectual capital, but has had trouble sort of being the place where people make stuff for a whole bunch of reasons, but it is the place where people sort of think and develop things. And if there are examples, General Electric has moved a lot of stuff that was offshore manufactured back to the United States. Part of it was a cost issue, but the big issue was they wanted to get closer. They needed to put their manufacturing activities closer to where they were doing a lot of their development and research activities because the product life cycle was getting a lot shorter. And I guess my question is that something that in manufacturing generally in a state like this could be a good thing for us?
I personally think it's going to be a very good thing, all right? And the reality here is that the life cycle changes very rapidly. There's a whole new technology in terms of additive manufacturing, 3D printing, whatever they want to describe it, that's come out and will allow companies to get into prototypes and develop prototypes much faster. One of the educational venues that we're facing and trying to deal with is getting these small manufacturers into this technology and getting the resources for them to learn it. But to go back to your point, the advantage of the smaller runs lies very much to the state. The machine shop that adds, say, additive manufacturing and 3D printing to their capacity, they can make the part, prototype it, and the demand for parts is no longer in the thousands, all right? They're now ordering hundreds of parts. It's a much smaller demand program now today with many of these new products. So consequently, we want to enable many of these machine shops not just to do parts, but to be in production and to make small production runs. The opportunities are here. It's an educational process, and it'll be an evolution. But we have, as you mentioned before, a lot of intellectual resources here as well, and I think we can do it. One of the things we sent one of our people down to Mississippi, and it was a GE facility that moved up in South America and made aircraft engines. And our person asked the manager of the firm of the installation there, what are your biggest challenges? And he said that if he could have somebody who could read a ruler, he'd be happy. All right. I mention that because many of these companies have come back and gone to low-cost production areas where agriculture might have been the norm, and the educational level is not that high. We have a distinct advantage here, all right? We just haven't been able to organize and sell it as good as we should. Anybody else? Nick?
What I'd like to touch on is focusing on what Massachusetts can control. And I tell you, moving forward, we've had our challenges, though. The Boylston site, 2 to 3 years from 2005 to 2008, I would say it definitely much more challenging than you would like. So when we're looking at acquisitions down in the southeast, it's just shocking when we're looking at acquisitions. It's anticipating what the obstacles are, and if Massachusetts can work together, accelerate from a permitting perspective, become more organized, I think that can become a differentiator that's going to allow you to attract more business. Just as an example, Connecticut's got this Connecticut Transfer Act, which some of the real estate folks here are aware of, we've delayed an acquisition in Connecticut for a year because we're doing massive amounts of due diligence. A facility that we bought 10 years ago, we literally just got buttoned up in Newtown, Connecticut last year. So Connecticut, that's something that makes them, I think, less competitive because that's in place. I think in Massachusetts, it's becoming more organized, where it's just not the small city. It's the, whether it's central Mass, whether it's the state, bringing more horsepower to bear. And if you can get to a point, I think, if you look at Austin, Texas, some of these other forums of what's allowed other, whether it's Charlotte, whether it's Greenville, whether it's Austin, what's allowed them to grow. What we can't change here is the electricity in many cases. We're not going to, the group in this room is not going to change the healthcare costs. You're not going to change the distribution distance to get to Nashville, where you can get to 50% of the country within 500 miles. You can't change those, but I think what you can do is become kind of world-class on helping organize from a facility perspective. And I know for us, we would have done a lot more investment up here in the last 3, 4, 5 years if that were in place. It helps that you've got Connecticut down the road, which is a challenge, but we're looking to buy buildings in New Hampshire. And I think New Hampshire, as in many cases, has made it easier to do investment with without a lot of those other challenges. So I think as a manufacturer looking for growth, we're hoping if you make that easier, you're going to attract more companies so they can do the commercialization here. But that's something I think we would ask, I guess, the state to focus on.
Yeah. So I would add to that. I would agree, Charlie, with your point that I think that's where the opportunity lies for us. So it's in that commercialization of the discovery to large-scale, high-volume, low-margin manufacturing. We've talked a lot about the education here in the state. Our education level here is relatively high compared to the other places where we do business. We need to capitalize on that. People need to be nimble, agile, ready to readapt to new technologies, continuously train and develop themselves to be able to bring on new technologies or new industries. So I mentioned once we launched Humira, it's now manufactured other places. We are we're fully a development site now, and in that transition, we did have to learn how to prototype more rapidly. How do we go from continuous manufacturing of one product to be able to do short duration campaigns of many different clinical prototypes? And we still put pressure on that process to try to make those cycle times even faster. And even further up in the screening funnel, where we're trying to identify those candidates in the first place, we want to look at more and more against more and more different kinds of measures. So things like automation and high volume screening begin to come into play. So there are a lot of technologies that people need to be, or students need to be adept in. And it's, I think it is the area of opportunity for Massachusetts manufacturing to create those industries that are going to go out to other parts of the world.
I think we may have time for one more question.
Hi, Mike Wasserman. I'm the Executive Director of Bottom Line. We help students in Worcester and around Massachusetts graduate from college, and so we've talked a little bit about getting students prepared, the great stuff happening at Worcester State, at Worcester Tech, at QCC, Worcester State, places like that. But Jack, you mentioned how often starting careers is a challenge because of having to go into temporary positions, and so I'm curious to hear a little bit about how you all view the entry-level pathways for students who are interested or would be interested in manufacturing, but may not see a way to quickly move up in that sector when they see pathways in other sectors.
Well, I can remember when I was somewhat younger that I think most young people take whatever opportunities are in front of them, all right? They don't maybe make a decision for the long haul. I know when I was younger, somebody making a quarter more an hour was much more important to me than a lot of other things, all right? But I'm dating myself, I know. But in any case, a quarter was a lot of money in those days. We only get paid 50 cents an hour. But in terms of there is this gestation period where somebody coming out of high school, unless they're exceptionally bright, unless they've been associated with somebody in the manufacturing field, will have a hard time finding a job in manufacturing. And the problem with that is that many of these young people, because of the insurance laws, do not get much experience on the shop floor or a manufacturing floor. We preclude people, younger people, from going through an apprentice program, all right? We have these archaic laws that, say that they shouldn't be on the production floor. The insurance people don't want young people on the production floor because their brains are unformed, and so consequently, they miss that opportunity. But the truth is that there are many companies, I can't think of, Nellis Jamesbury is the old name, but the new name is what, Roberta? Metso. Thank you very much. They have gone out of their way and used the apprenticeship program at the community, at both at Quinsigamond and especially at Quinsigamond and at Worcester Technical High School, and they have brought young people on, and they do a real good job, a really good job in bringing young people through pathways. Morgan Construction is now Siemens, has a long history of being associated with the Worcester Technical High School and bringing young people on. Siemens now has about 550 people now working there. They made a big investment. There's a big demand. They have gone out of their way. We provide training for what is referred to as the hard-to-serve population, all right? These are usually mature people. The average age is about 51, and we provide basic orientation and skills, and we get them employed. The advantage that those people have over the younger people coming out of school or better educated is that they're more mature. Many of the young people coming out have to convince the employer that they're mature enough to be able to handle the responsibility of managing a machine, all right? So it's a challenge. But the real missing point, to your point, where it's very hard for a young person to come out of school, come out of high school, and get a job immediately on the production floor, all right? And that, unless we get back to some type of apprentice program, we're not going to be able to enable the next generation to learn the skills necessary.
I just wanted to add to that. In a vocational technical setting, the structure is set up that during the 9th and 10th grade, each of the technical programs goes out and has field trips to various business and industry locations so the students can to see firsthand exactly what type of opportunities are there. They also are brought to college campuses and technical programs so that they can walk the college campus and view themselves as a potential college student. In addition, as upperclassmen, students have an opportunity to have internships in co-op, and seniors in their senior year will actually get paid during their technical week to work out in business and industry. You know, Jack brought up the name Metso. Metso actually changed their employee benefits because of our Worcester Tech students. They, at our senior awards night every year, because we place 2 or 3 students there for their co-op for their senior year, they hand a student a contract for full employment, and they change their benefits so that they would pay for our students to go to Quinsigamond Community College part-time so they can continue their education. Students now realize that it's lifelong learning, and you cannot expect that you're going to business and industry and staying there for the next 30 years. Companies are changing, expectations are changing, and people need to be adaptive. And to be adaptive, you need to stay current, you need to be a lifelong learner, and continue to stay in the cutting edge in regards to what business and industry is expecting so that you can stay employable.
Set? I'm conscious of the time. I'd like to leave you with a quote from Michael Porter of the Harvard Business School. He told the nation's governors in 2011, if a company in your state is doing the same thing it did 10 years ago, using the same production processes, producing the same products, it's going to be very hard to succeed. Clearly, this is a conversation for all of us. If our support systems, our schools, our pathways into these careers are doing the same things we did 10 years ago, we will not succeed. We are in a globally competitive world. I thank you for your time, and this is a wonderful conversation, the start of more conversation. Thank you.